What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's project is this Poulan Pro leaf blower, and the problem is that this engine won't start because it has low compression. Let's take a good look at it, find out what's wrong with it, and hopefully we can fix it. In this video, we try and repair this blower. However, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. In the last video, we were trying to find out how worn out the engine was by pulling on the rope, only to find out that the engine was stuck. Now, after spraying some PB Blaster in the spark plug hole and letting it sit for about a day, we were finally able to turn the engine over and got the pull rope working as well. However, after cleaning as much corrosion out of the engine as possible without taking it apart, the engine still didn't start. We then used a compression tester on the engine only to find out that we have low compression. Today, we're going to take the cylinder off the engine to find out just how bad it is. The only reason why I'm considering taking off the cylinder is because it's really easy to do on this engine. With the rear cover off, you can see the holes where the two bolts go, and all we need to do is remove the bolts and take the carburetor off. It's probably easier to remove the carburetor first, but it's not that difficult either way. Some other brands have the engine buried under plastic covers and require you to dismantle the entire machine just to get to the cylinder. In reality, it probably only takes an additional 10 minutes to get to this point, but it can be a huge hassle at the same time. When you take the cylinder off, just be careful you don't break the rubber gasket, and of course, try not to lose your grip on the cylinder. So here's the cylinder, and it actually looks pretty good. There's some scuffing on it, but it's not that bad considering how the piston was stuck. It looks like there's still some loose debris in there, so we'll spray it down with more carburetor cleaner before it's reinstalled. So here's the piston, and it looks pretty bad. There's still some white deposits on it, and it's pretty obvious that the ring is rusted in place, and that's why our compression number is so low. To get a better view, I'll remove the side cover to make removing and installing the connecting rod easier. Now the piston and ring looks to be salvageable, so I'm going to use some carburetor cleaner and a well-used wire brush to try and remove whatever I can. I don't think I can get it spotless, but I'll do the best I can. In fairness, I should probably replace the piston and ring along with the cylinder. The parts would cost over $75, and that's almost the price for a brand new blower, so I'd like to see if I can reuse the original parts. I hate to say it, but that's about as good as it's going to get without putting it in a weak acid solution overnight, and to be honest, I don't think that's going to help either. The next thing we need to do is try and free the stuck ring, and the only thing I could come up with was to try and scrape the rust out of the gap between the ring and the ringland. As you see, it's doing a decent job of getting the rust out from the top gap, however, there was a lot less room in the bottom gap. After getting what I could out, it still wasn't free, so my last resort was to tap on the piston and see if the ring will free itself. I'm using the plastic end of my screwdriver so I don't damage the piston. I really didn't think it was going to work, but after a minute of tapping, I got one end of the ring loose. So I kept tapping around the piston, and after several minutes of tapping, I finally got it freed. I really just wanted to put the piston back in the engine, but I wanted to remove the ring and see if the groove was clean. And if it wasn't clean, then I would try to remove whatever corrosion was left. And of course, it wasn't clean, so I'll try to clean it. In a different situation, I would break the old ring and use it to clean the groove, but I can't obviously do that. After that's done, I'll reinstall the ring and put everything back together. When installing the ring, just be careful as the ring only goes on one way. There's a pin in the groove where the one end of the ring goes, and the ring is cut so it can fit the pin. I find it easier to put one end of the ring in the groove and then work the ring around the piston. Just be careful because you can break the ring. Before we install the piston, it's a good idea to clean the crankcase with carburetor cleaner. But before you do that, make sure you take off the rubber gasket that goes on top, otherwise you might damage it. Now if you have some compressed air, that would be helpful. Just make sure you're wearing some safety glasses first. Now that the crankcase is clean and dry, we can replace the rubber gasket on top, and before I install the piston inside the cylinder, I'll put some light lubricant on the cylinder and the piston ring. If you want to use some 2-cycle oil instead, that'll work as well. Now when installing the piston in the cylinder, it's really important to put it back the way it came out. If you look under the piston, you'll see an arrow. Now this arrow was pointing in the direction of the drive shaft when it came out, so that's how I'm going to install it back into the engine. Now I don't have a ring compressor this size, but it's small enough that you can just use your fingers to squeeze the ring into place. Once the piston is installed in the cylinder, we can now slide the connecting rod onto the crankshaft and then put the cylinder onto the crankcase. I did make a mistake, however, I should have put this bolt into place first, but I'll just rotate the cylinder so I can install it right now. Another reason why the compression would be low on this engine is the corrosion inside the cylinder not only locked the ring into a closed position, but also damaged the cylinder walls as well. If this was the case, I think the compression number would have been even lower than 50. If you remove the cylinder and find the cylinder walls have been badly damaged, it's best just to replace it instead. I have tried to save a mildly scuffed cylinder before. It's still working, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. Since we have the engine mostly back together, I want to check the compression and see if it's gotten higher than its original reading of 50 psi. If the reading hasn't changed, then I can stop the repair right now and order new components. The reading is definitely higher than before. It's now almost 100 psi. Now that's not back to brand new, but it's enough that we should be able to start and use the blower. Now just for fun, I want to add some oil into the engine and see just how much compression I can build with the oil helping to seal the cylinder. With the oil in the cylinder, we now get a reading of about 135 psi, which is much better than before. Now that's a trick you can do if you have a worn out engine and you still want to keep using it till you get another machine. Now I want to put some fuel into the engine and try starting it to confirm that it does run. So it started and ran for a second, and that means I can start putting the rest of the engine back together. Now the plan is to use the blower for a while and break it in and then see if the compression goes up. Even if it stays at 100 psi, it'll still start and work just fine. It'll just be slightly down on power. Now I'm not sure if the carburetor needs to be inspected, but I want to do that in the next video because I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long. I've always said that rebuilding a blown 2-cycle engine was not worth it. The top-end kit that consists of the cylinder and the piston could cost half as much as a brand new unit, and if you have someone else install it, then it's definitely not worth it. This one was a special case where there really wasn't a lot of damage, we just had to do a lot of cleanup work instead. Even if we had to replace the ring on this engine, it would have only been $3, so I think it was worth a shot. There are a few things that need to be addressed, like the broken choke lever and air filter, and we haven't even gone through the fuel system yet. As of right now, we've only put time into this repair and no money. So how much time have I spent on this repair? I didn't time it, but I'd guess about 1.5 hours. So my question, if you could invest $2 and 4 hours of your time into fixing a blower to get it working again, would it be worth trying the repair, or is that still too much to undertake? Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.